Is it different? I thought it
Who needs
said.
a budget?
There's two on the agenda.
Yeah, I have one.
Take a look.
Oh, these are the same, okay, these are the same,
Take a look, take two.
okay.
I don't know if everybody else has these, if you want to have
I do, I made a copy of all that.
Oh, yeah, you made a copy of everything?
Yeah, I did.
So, but you want this down this way.
Okay.
We can share.
Here you
Show me.
go. We got agenda needs.
There's plenty of extra.
I fucking need an agenda. I made you move the seat.
You start slowing it.
I still feel guilty about that. Because I was lost.
Now I did an agenda.
Yeah, that is important. It won't start.
Okay, thank you all for waiting for us, I appreciate it. Yes, it is, yeah, sorry. All right, it is 4:39. Hank, thank you, 4:39 here. Okay, 2024 budget. So last week we met, we went over the budget. Sue, I appreciate you sending the budget. I had to put it in Excel because that's who I am, and I'm just, but I do have an immediate question. When you sent it over, your total income line was 405,000, but your expenses were 375. So is that what it still shows?
What are we talking about?
The total income on your
The
budget?
total income
Mhm.
Looking at
is
the one-
371, 348.78.
That's the actual. So looking at the budget that we had last week, the expenses was 405.
Right, but the top
So-
number was what? The income number.
This is the one we had last week.
Right.
So I think the expenses
But
maybe
then-
didn't get updated from.
Well, no,
Yes.
but wait, but this was the one we looked at last week, but then there was another one that you sent out after this.
Correct, I made corrections
Yes, so
because
that-
you asked us to change the anticipated revenue
Right.
from Medicare and payroll and
Right.
payments. So I changed those,
Mhm.
which, that doesn't affect that at all.
Yeah, so that made the income number 405,850, okay?
Yeah.
Yes,
But then with the expenses at 375,850, I changed the allocations for Jackson and Bartlett, so income equals expenses, because isn't that generally the way the budget is presented?
Yes, it is, right.
Okay, so this spreadsheet with the lines and grids shows expenses equal to income, so it would be a wash. And Matt just changed the, like I said, it just changed to the,
So,
here you
Sue,
go.
I think what it was is we had, after we had the final payroll numbers for this
Yeah.
year, we had updated that payroll number. And
oh, that's correct.
that updated payroll number was on the one from last week, and it's not on this one for this week.
Right.
So the 405,850 should be the actual,
What should the,
the payroll should be 328,000.
Okay,
So-
direct me to the line now.
The
Oh.
payroll under expenses.
we have too many versions then. 328?
328,000, yes.
Okay.
And the total then would be the 405,850.
And then what would the Jackson and Bartlett contributions be?
It would be, Jackson should be 61,940 and Bartlett should be 92910.
How much now you what?
What was the bar?
Bartlett 92910.
So that was
Right.
what we got when we met last time.
It was the one last time with the adjustments to the Medicare payment.
Right.
Okay.
So you're changing the anticipated amount of payroll by,
Right, that's the one
By
we
30,
adjusted
right.
before the meeting last week.
All right, three numbers changed then. Jackson becomes 61,940. Bartlett becomes 92,910.
yes.
And the salary or the payroll number becomes 328,000.
Yes.
Okay?
Mhm.
The other thing I did on this was I put the donation and bank account numbers on the bottom there in little grids, but then I also put on the back of this page the capital costs from 2023 that we had in the budget. And we had 52,615 as a total line item, but I'm not sure how that was spent during the year. So it's not really that important that we fill that in. I just wanted to put those numbers in there because I know
Right.
that all of the, like the Lucas and the pumps were purchased, or I'm sorry, the pumps and the vent were purchased, and then the Lucas you guys bought on your own, and we did put something
Right,
out
it got-
there for that.
Yeah, it got very convoluted.
Yep, so that, again, like I said, is not as important as just making sure moving forward we know what we're talking about.
Right, okay.
So, now we go to the agenda. New ambulance warrant article. Last year, we presented it at budget time, and in Jackson, we started a capital reserve fund for the ambulance, and Bartlett said, well, sort of endorse buying it, but you guys can put anything specifically away for it. And we said, go ahead and order it, because you're not tied, you didn't have to buy it, so we
Well,
didn't
it
have
says go
to.
ahead and order it, you might want to say.
Yeah, and now we know that it's not going to be in until the spring of 2026.
That's correct.
So we can still contribute to our
Mhm.
capital reserve fund,
Mhm.
but you want to put a warrant article out to specifically,
We just wanted to make sure that it was put
We
the way
have-
it needs to be.
okay,
Yeah. We didn't know if you'd have to redo that again, because you guys didn't bring it forward. Bartlett was gonna, and we were told everything was good, and it wasn't. And
yeah.
so
So,
we're not sure what we said.
and we do different things in the towns,
Right.
each town. So we will probably continue to contribute to our capital reserve fund, making our allocation for the portion that we kind of know is the ambulance cost, what we're banking on today. And we'll put, whatever we decide to, a third, or whatever, so that we're ready in 2026. And then Bartlett, you can decide what you're going to do for the cost of the ambulance as well. Does that sound?
Mhm.
And I don't think that requires a warrant article. It will require a allocation, well, probably will for a capital reserve fund for sure. Yep.
Off the top of your head, do you know how much is in that at the moment from last
No,
year?
I don't remember what we put in, was it 85?
What was the,
No, it wasn't 85.
we put in 1/2 of half or something. What was the
Yeah, it was
total?
275.
We figured we were gonna do it over 2 years, so whatever that was the
Yeah.
first year, then the
Right,
second.
half of your
year.
payment.
Right,
Yeah,
and
I
then
don't
you
know.
guys would match at some point. Or borrow.
but I will let you know. Hold on a second. Station, fire. 50,000. 50 was our portion of last year. All right, so, yes, 50K is our balance so far. Okay, next is the updated pay rate. Robbie, did you want to talk about that?
I sent it out to everybody to have a look at. It's pretty much what we talked about last time. I don't know if anybody had any questions that they wanted to ask.
It's not on here. That's the difference, oh, Frank, this
Sorry.
meeting, I'm sorry. Do you want to just recap real quickly how the new pay
Yeah.
rates will go?
So as the broad overview, currently we're paying a lower rate comparatively for shifts versus for calls. And I wanted to kind of flip that, pay more for taking the shift, because that's really what we want covered, and then the calls will be covered after that. So it's a little bit of a pay bump as well, but more just that turnover of paying for that shift, trying to incentivize people to take shifts over just coming on the calls.
Makes sense to me.
And remind me, because I don't have it in front of me, it's a 12-hour shift, and how much per shift?
The 12-hour shift would be $100 to take.
And what is it currently?
It is currently $35.
For a 12-hour shift,
Yes.
and also he's doing 6-hour shifts
There's-
instead
yeah,
of
6
12-hour
hours.
shifts. so
Which
there's
some
an
of us
option
don't
for
really
that.
like,
Yeah,
just so you know.
right.
Well, you're in charge,
I know.
so if you don't like it, don't do it.
Well, I'm just saying, and more people seem to like it, so we're gonna try it, so.
What don't you like about it?
Honestly, when people take a shift, it's a number of hours regardless of where it is. If I take a shift, it's a 6-hour shift, and I have to go to a soccer game, and I'm gonna be gone for 3 hours, typically, I would say I'll cover it for you, take your shift and go. If you do a couple of 3 hours on a 12-hour shift, it's not a big press. If you miss half a shift, you still wanna get paid. It doesn't sit well with me. That's all. I mean, it's simple
But
situation.
can you reduce, if you're only doing half the shift, couldn't you just get paid half the amount?
You
Yes,
can,
if they-
but
if they
how
document it that
complicated do you
way.
wanna make it, you know, if somebody calls, hey,
If
you
you're
know,
not gonna
downtown.
cover- if you're not gonna cover a whole shift, you should get paid for a whole shift.
Right.
But when it goes into winter work, when you schedule that you're going to take that shift, that automatically says you're gonna take that shift. There's no way to indicate that you've only taken half of the shift.
There
that's
is, but it's
what
very
there is, but it's
complicated.
very complicated.
Okay.
But
I
part
mean,
of what
it's
we've talked
just-
about with the changing the pay scale is being much more strict about taking the shifts and being there for the whole 6 hours.
So there's pros and cons to it,
Right.
obviously, because you're hoping to attract more people to get paid higher, so you can
Mhm.
hopefully get more recruits, so you can get people to sign on to the shifts,
Right.
et cetera, and that's the upside of that. And the other thing is, this is the year you're trying it, and if it works out really well, or if it doesn't work out well, then you'll revisit it whenever you have to. The good thing is, if you change it back, it'll go down, and that's dollar.
Well, it's
the
really
good
not
thing
the same, it's
dollar-wise,
just a different way of getting
I
it.
mean, it could reduce the budget, but you have to do what you have to do to make sure people are on home.
Right.
So, it's a shift in the way you're paying.
And that will make the payroll budget a little bit less variable depending on calls too.
Right, because you know how many people you have to have.
Right.
So we're gonna try it, and then if we doesn't work out, we're gonna take the money away.
Well, I wouldn't
I mean-
necessarily document and say that, but I would think that you're trying something that's very new.
Yep,
To
I
say
get it.
that. But, you know, you have to come to us at mid-year or whatever saying,
Right.
man, we got 5 new recruits because the pay is better
Mhm.
and we've had people sign up for shifts. We don't have, you know, the same 2 guys on every single call. And, you know, there's gonna be documentation that we're gonna be talking about at each quarterly meeting.
Well, how do we account for people taking a shift now?
Electronically, it's on
It's
the work.
on a system called, it's an app called When to Work.
Okay.
So they get paid that way and payroll gets done
Mhm.
according to that.
Okay.
But then the rest of it is the calls that they actually go on and the reports, et
Right.
cetera. And that's gonna be more important to do because they get paid if they take, you know, whether or not they take.
No, I
something, right?
I have no issue with that. I have issue if you're not, you shouldn't get paid for a whole shift if you're not gonna work the whole shift. There's gotta be some kind of guidelines or watchdog on that.
Well, right now, they're signing up for 12-hour shifts.
And there are a lot of people that go on calls that don't take any bump on the shift or even any money for the calls. So it's-
Well, what happens too, Ron, is somebody will go on a call, but they're not signed up for a shift, they're just available, so they're not in one to work yet, but they go to the call, so then they get paid for the call and they put in the shift.
You can't,
So, well,
you can't, unless one of us does that.
yeah. So there is
So I think it
a
can be
little
taken
control.
back, I think, but, you know, I don't think this, it's not,
I don't think it's being abused by
No.
putting it in post.
there's not a, no.
A lot of times we'll have 2 calls. We've had both trucks on the road, I couldn't even tell you how many times now.
Yeah.
We've had trucks in Portland, Boston, and Portsmouth this week. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, who knows?
Anything else on pay rates?
I think that these guys just do an incredible job, and if you're advocating for something for the work that you do and when you have to do it, I'm all for it.
Thanks, Frank.
I only go back to 88 now, 1988. Gene goes back to, you know, Washington, when we walk on the streets.
Are we gonna vote on that now? So what do you?
I'd kind of like to go through the whole budget, and then maybe vote on the budget, because it's gonna be.
That would be included in the payroll on the regular
Right.
budget. It's up, you know.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. Transfer versus 911 breakdown, is that part of the budget?
Yeah, so that would be what Sue sent out as far as the numbers of the
updated
rest
numbers
account.
we have.
Right. And that was the transfers that we got, the amount of money we received from transfers.
Mhm.
However, there were several that have not been cleared through.
Mhm.
So it's probably not a huge difference, because we don't get a whole lot of money, especially if it's Medicare.
Right,
Um,
and that
I
was
think it was like 148,000 that we got for transfers.
and that's a significant amount.
Mm.
And it's a shift change in the way you're doing business too, I think, and making money, so our contributions are this high, but also just the value of business you're doing. So I appreciate getting that information together. Hart's location contribution. So did you have any luck talking to?
I did,
Mark?
they agreed to double it to 2,000, and that was over a phone call, he was on Camden Mountain Place skiing, so hey, can we double it? They intend to increase it a little bit every year.
Okay.
And
And
it
we,
looks like, oh, sorry.
we had thought about 1,500, so,
Yeah.
2,000 is more than we bargained for.
But
But,
from the information Sue sent out, it doesn't look like we're losing money on Hart's location.
Well, we might be because one of the big Hearts location accidents was a really catastrophic thing for a child and her mom. And it ended up going from here, Hearts to Memorial, Memorial to Portland. And it's Canadian, so we may never see anything of that, we don't know.
But in general,
Do you know Trudeau?
I
Can you call Trudeau?
What did what?
Can you call the Prime Minister in Canada and say, hey, we need some money?
We need some
Next
money.
one from Canada, may not be coming.
Yeah, as far as what we're actually billing out, obviously
Yeah.
it's variable for what we
Right,
get back,
right.
but we build out about,
I think it should be at least $5,000.
if we can get them to bump it every year, we can get
By
them
the
to
time we
double
get to
it.
5,000,
Well,
we'll be
if we
so
can
far
get them to
behind.
double it next year, then we'll be at 4.
Right.
now we're talking
Not even
exponential.
close. to what
Whoa.
We should be
Well,
charging.
we've had 18 calls to Hearts this year.
Mhm.
A lot of them are carryouts, a lot of them are fishing game stuff, and it's, some of them are sheriffs that got in accidents and whatever it is,
Mhm.
Do you guys think you're getting too good a deal? Are they getting too good a
I
deal?
think everybody's getting too good at doing
Well,
it. Honestly,
I feel that way too, but let's just
You
talk
know,
about Hearts
this is
location.
more than $1 million program anywhere but here.
But Hearts location, should they be paying more than 2?
We don't really, if
Should we
they did
lean
nothing,
on
it's
what
still
you just
obligated
asked?
to go if they call.
I realize I'm fighting a losing battle, I just had to say it.
But I think that's fair, I'm asking.
Oh, from the conversation at the last meeting, Rick made the phone call and we've got it
Right.
bumped from 1,000 to 2,000, so I think that's
And
good
we-
progress
Well,
forward.
with all due respect to Rick, I think the call should say, this is what we're charging you, not how much do you want to pay. I mean-
We also talked about the percentage that they pay as a percentage of their tax rate, which is sort of funky to do when you're in Hart's location because their
right.
tax, the portion of the ambulance they're paying for their tax rate. Again, the calls that we do are generally not for the residents up there, they're generally for private,
Motor vehicle accidents driving through or
MBAs and
whatever,
stuff,
yeah.
but-
Right. I don't get that, and I don't
Which
want,
is just like it is here, really.
Mhm.
Not the majority for
do you
sure.
collect 100% of those? Probably not, that's the
Of
problem.
all the local people,
No, everybody in Hasselblad.
Oh. never, we don't collect 100% of anything anywhere we go.
I get that, but here, we're supporting it.
Uh,
Up there, we're supporting them too.
Of course.
We're supporting our towns, plus
Well, I
their
think we get paid for enough of what we've done in there, so I don't think it's cost us money.
I would say as far as the operating budget, I think that's probably more than fair. If you wanted to talk to them about the capital expenditure and that kind of side of things, that might be a separate conversation, but
Yeah.
And
from my
that
point of
should
view,
come from you guys.
right,
With
from my point of view,
capital-
we've presented our budget to you guys as far as how it gets paid.
With capital expenditure comes a certain amount of maintenance to keep stuff in good shape.
Mhm.
So should I take that extra 1,000
Mhm.
and reduce Jackson by 40%
Yeah.
and Bartlett by 60%?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And you're comfortable with the numbers for Medicare and private payments received at 110 and 140?
As comfortable as I can, I wish I had a magic ball, but I
Yeah,
don't, so
right.
it's just,
Go ahead.
there will be a problem if the New Hampshire Insurance Commission adopts what Anita Burrows wants. Because she wants people to not have to pay a balance if their insurance doesn't pay the whole thing. Right now, we're restricted with Medicare and Medicaid.
Right,
We have to accept what they pay.
right.
So if I bill them 1,000 and they pay us 250, that's it. I can't do anything else. Other people with regular insurance, they have deductibles and they also may not meet for whatever reason. And if that goes through, then we're gonna be screwed. Because we're gonna probably get about maybe 2/3, but probably not, of the rest of them. Because the insurances, they're not gonna pay.
Right.
If they know that nobody else is gonna come up with that money, why would they pay the full amount?
Right.
So,
I can't imagine that bill will get any, I shouldn't say that.
I hope not.
I would be very surprised if that happens. but I don't know, stranger things have
I
happened.
agree with you, but the stranger things happen.
you never know.
Well, it all depends on the ambulance services throughout calling their representatives.
We've all been beating that one pretty hard. A lot of people have been going to meetings.
What's the reasoning behind that people don't
Essentially-
call for the ambulance?
So it's a consumer protection bill is how they're phrasing it, and the idea that you're being hit with a surprise bill, basically. That you're calling 911, you don't know ahead of time what it's gonna charge, and you don't get. You basically get the surprise bill at the end.
Is that an income-based decision on that, or is it just plain blanket?
Theirs is just across the board, is what they're talking about. At the moment, the income base with Medicaid, that's already in place.
Right.
So from that.
Yeah.
point of view-
Medicaid pays, occasionally they pay 2/3, but very rarely. But I don't think it has anything to do with no surprises unless there's a tag onto that, because this
This
is
is
not-
that bill.
they could be, if they asked us what their bill was going to be, we would tell them. That doesn't mean we say, okay, but because you're gonna, you've got this other thing with the insurance commission, we will accept 2/3 of whatever it is. So that's gonna be really complicated. I just hope it doesn't go through. And
But you're responding to an emergency, you're not discussing their insurance bill
Right,
all the time, are you? I
We
mean,
try not
you're
to.
trying to get their insurance, but you're not badgering them for that before you put the IV in.
I'd say I understand where it's coming from,
Yeah.
but if we could say that the insurance company had to pay the full amount,
Right.
instead of just telling us what they're gonna give
Yeah,
us.
Or come up with a flat rate, this is where it's at.
right.
The difference in ambulance services is anywhere from $20 a mile, which is a rural rate that we've been charging for a number of years now, to the highest I've heard is $78 a mile.
Mhm.
Now, they're not getting paid $78 a mile, but they're billing it out. People are getting chased for it. And it's, who knows? $78 a mile, you get a whole lot of crap.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? Oh, go
Gene
ahead.
has a question.
Go ahead. Lindsay.
I just have a question. I lose track of what's happening in the valley because things, fire departments, everything else is changing.
Mhm.
Does Conway still have ambulance service?
They do.
They're the only ones.
They're-
Conway
Action.
Village has their ambulance service, and then North Conway and Redstone is covered by Action Ambulance, which is a third-party for-profit
So
company.
technically, this wouldn't
And
have,
Santa Conway has their own, which they come back and,
their own ambulance?
Yeah, they bought our old one.
Oh, they do, okay.
And
So
they
I'm just
do-
trying
they don't
to-
transport very often. They
Trying to think who we
transport
should talk to then, Conway Village and Center Conway, to talk to the Conway reps about this.
Right.
North Conway doesn't make a difference because it's other.
Well, they send their fire department because they have, no transport license. So instead of a little bit of money, they're sending the entire fire department to the hotel room to watch Nanny have a heart attack. And then the ambulance is going along and they're being told what they need to do. And then boom, so you get, it's a huge expense that doesn't need to be there at all.
Well, we need to
Well, that's their
organize
choice,
against
too.
this thing.
Yeah.
Right, thank you, we do,
Agreed.
you're right.
I wanted to go back
Yeah.
to just the whole Hearts location discussion, and, Gene threw out $5,000, I don't know if that was arbitrary or it was based on numbers you looked at, and you guys seem to be like, well, it's a variable and changes from year to year, and we're doubling it this year, and I think that unless we've satisfied with that, we should probably communicate to them that we see ourselves doubling that next year. I mean, to serve
Yeah,
notice, I mean, it's all
yeah.
about communication.
I don't know what, I guess in one way it doesn't really matter, but I wonder what their tax base is. Do they have 30 people that are paying these taxes?
I don't know.
Or that's, I think that's, not that that's our problem,
Right.
but
Exactly.
still, it makes a difference if you've only got 20 people and their tax bill goes up.
Well, they've got I don't know what their tax rate is, it's more than 20, that's for sure.
Right,
There's 20 in the Bartlett side of our location.
right.
But I also thought we discussed last week that we could bill them whatever we wanted, we just weren't getting the payment anyway.
Right.
So it really didn't matter how much we wanted to charge them, we just weren't getting paid.
Well,
So,
I guess-
the town of Hearts location pays. It's just the people that we respond to the accidents don't pay.
Right.
Well, a lot of them are from out of state or
But
out of
I
country.
do think that you're right, communication and saying, we appreciate that you willingly went up to $2,000,
Well,
just so you know.
let's have the conversation this year with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Over the course of the
Yeah.
year, I
Right.
think.
Not having a budget
And
time.
definitely maybe consider part of the capital costs.
Mhm.
As part of, a percentage of that, I agree with you for that.
Jay, did you have a comment?
Yeah, if you look at the entire ambulance budget and you take a look at what charging Hearts location $2 or $3 grand, that's a pretty dang small percentage of your budget.
It is, totally.
And I agree with Gene 100%. It's gotta be higher. Absolutely. I mean, I kinda went through the same thing in looking at, if you ever had to charge, say, mutual aid towns or something, it's way more than, the cost is way more than per call.
Right, well,
You
we
gotta-
talked about that with the fire department too, rebilling them for certain calls they
You know,
do.
it's gotta be based
there.
on their entire operational budget, not per call.
I brought that up because it just feels like, right,
Pretty
going
right,
from
right.
1 to 2 feels like unfinished business to some. And I think that should be, you know, maybe communicated to them, like expect us to come back next year, you know, looking for twice the amount.
Or at least bring them to the table and have the discussion
Yeah,
about
right.
this new ambulance cost. 270 empty, then we had to put stuff in it, and by the time we came up with it, it came to
And that's what
340, whatever.
That's what they want the figure for now. They're putting together their budget. Yeah, the town residents are gonna be charged.
Mhm.
All right, I'll put a call out to Mark and talk to him about it since this conversation, and also about the fact that a new ambulance is being ordered and they need to think about how much they're gonna be contributing when we send them the bill for that.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I have one other thing on the payments as well. Supposedly, one of the carrots that we would get if the insurance commission passed that is that the insurance companies would be mandated to pay us as a
Correct.
provider. Anthem is the only company that's doing it, but they pay the patient.
Right.
And they're saying, well, we're not a participating provider. But I don't know how we're not. I mean, I just don't understand it. We definitely accept what they pay us, so I consider that participating. But what happens is that people they'll get the check, and they think, oh goodness, I've got a bonus here, and then they don't realize that we didn't get paid.
Right.
So then I'm
You're
chasing it,
that.
and then they don't believe me. And it could be 6 months to a year before I see the money. And sometimes I have several that were transfers that had Blue Cross, and they kept the money, and it was over $3,500, and I didn't see a dime of it. So,
And we've talked about
that's the only good part that I can see out of that.
Yeah,
That it comes directly to it.
And it did for a little bit when
yeah, it changed and then it
Gene
went
was the
back
Speaker
again.
of the House, he worked on that, and we were getting direct payments for a little bit,
Right.
because it's something he had talked to them about.
Right,
And
now
all of a
something
sudden, that
changed.
changed again. And, now they're trying to make the insurance companies decide how much they're gonna pay you. Which doesn't, him watching the hen house, Fox watching the chickens, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Any more thoughts? I mean, we could call Mark again
Well,
and
did we
say
end up with
5,000,
what
but are
Bob
we,
suggested,
you know-
which I think is a good suggestion?
Well,
Yeah,
what do you do if
I
they say
would-
we can't do it or we won't do it? Do you still have a moral obligation to respond there if they call us? So,
Well, it gives 11 months to kind of.
Right.
right. Well, I think they'll cover up if we,
Yeah.
I don't think we can throw it to them in January and say, hey, by the way,
Right.
this is gonna change again this year.
Right.
And maybe we should have been more aggressive in the past years. What's the fire department get, 5,000?
Yes,
That's probably not enough either.
Yeah.
that's right. They're gonna want to.
Because you look at the new little air compressor, how much was that, Jay, 70-something thousand?
What's that?
All right.
That air compressor?
Vicki?
At our last meeting, I think it was Bob who talked about a percentage. Our budget has gone up this percentage.
Right.
So I think maybe once we get them up to 5,000 or maybe 5,000 for next year, and from every year after that, whatever the percentage of the increase in the budget will be the increase in yours. And we're going to include the large purchases in that total amount.
Right.
And then they will know, but it's equitable. We're all
Right.
paying the same
And
percentage.
you should come sit at the table with us as
Yes.
well.
Right, yeah, I think inviting them to these meetings and
Yeah.
at least having a representative.
That may be easier than we think it is.
Yeah,
You don't get any goals, you don't shoot.
yeah.
It's okay, it's okay, I like it. All right.
I need to pay
Um,
attention.
On the expense side, really, everything is pretty much what we discussed, but there are a few smaller increases other than the insurance and the salaries, so, the pay structure. So, any other comments on any of the other expense line items besides the payroll?
increase was the postage, which more runs, more
Yeah.
bills get sent out and postage rates. Yeah.
Stamp stuff.
And then we talked last time about no capital expenditures other than the ambulance. Is that
Yeah.
still what you're thinking?
I mean, if we start taking your money, we can buy stuff that we need probably, but,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we did this year, we continue to do that.
Right, but we haven't budgeted
Yeah.
the 60/40.
Right. Okay, and the ambulance, we're leaving at the 270,486 until we hear different, because obviously when it comes in 3 years, we won't.
We sort of padded that a little bit because we knew it was gonna be delayed, but who knows?
Are we locking in a price by ordering now, or not
You
necessarily?
can't lock in a price, nobody knows, I mean, they'd love
Got
to
it.
do it, they just,
Yeah, it's unexpected.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even lock in, honestly, you can't lock in a model right now.
Wow.
But you can lock in the color.
That's right, the green chevron, green chevron, please.
You came out so
Okay.
fast, I didn't have a chance.
All right. Anything else on the budgets before, are we in agreement that these are the final numbers? So we're at 2,000 for Arts location. The number I have for Jackson is $61,540. And the number I have for Bartlett is 92,310.
92,310?
Yes, and that's with the
Oh, that's
Well,
interesting, the five.
the additional wealth
Got it.
from Arts location.
Okay.
Yep, all right. And then your salary from last meeting, so I got that you changed the pay structure, et cetera, but when we were looking at last week, I believe it was at 298, now it's at 328, was that? just
It was 328 last week.
calculation? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I just had an old number, okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Do we want to vote to accept this budget to present at our budget hearings?
Are we voting for an amount? Because numbers have changed and everything. Do we know what the actual amount is?
405,850, but the overage short is basically zero because we used that
Yeah,
to
yeah.
fill in these contribution amounts.
Right.
So I guess basically we're voting to approve the full budget here,
Contribution.
to put our contribution in our budget.
Okay, got it. Got it.
So I don't know if we need to make a motion because we're two different towns. I think we make a motion to approve or accept the budget as presented or as modified. And I'm not hearing any questions, so I'll make a motion to accept the budget as modified with the changes we talked about tonight.
I'll second it. Can I do that, or should we wait and let the other board do it?
Are you guys on the board? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
No?
No,
Aye, okay.
could I ask that we give a formatted, with everything,
Absolutely.
I don't know, or whatever.
I'll give you a
But
brand new one.
Right.
Brand new one, yes.
Thank you.
So, we're gonna have, sorry, Barb, Frank. Oops. And Jean, you were no. Right. You're a no?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
Correct.
Agreed.
correct. All right, moving along. Updates on training, potential EMR program in Glen.
Yeah, so we were looking, I believe it's this summer, the state reached out to us and asked if we could host an EMR course, which is kind of a step below EMT. It's emergency medical responder. It's really good for firefighters and kind of people around EMS to be generally aware of it, some of the critical life-saving skills. It's not enough to be fully working in the back of the ambulance, but it's definitely a good way to get people's feet wet, that sort of thing, and the state fully funds these courses through some grants that they have. So they're gonna come up and basically use the training room. We've checked with Chief Courier already to put on that course.
When will that be? Just ballpark, like June,
I
July?
think it was fall, September.
Oh.
What was it? I don't remember exactly, I can pull that up.
What's the time commitment for an EMR?
It is September through October. As far as the
Hours?
hours for the course,
It's like 80.
It's still 40 hours, or?
I think it's 40, it's 6 days,
Okay.
6 Saturdays, I believe.
Got it.
Maybe it's, it used to be a first responder, then They kept changing the name of it, coming to town, but it was originally for prison guards, looking and said, oh,
Ah,
Epstein hung himself again.
That wasn't me.
you don't need 48 hours for that, do you?
Yeah.
And is it, are you opening it up to any community member who wants to participate?
Yeah, anybody who would like to
Okay.
is welcome to join. Once we get it a little more nailed down, finalized with the state, we'll probably put that out.
Yeah, and make sure you get it through our e-news, so
Okay.
send it to.
Mhm.
It'll be on the
I think
There
it was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we can definitely.
you go,
Facebook, that kind of thing,
Right.
people get involved, that'd be awesome.
awesome. I would also put it at the school, the high school, at the beginning of the year.
Mhm.
All right, full-time director position.
Yeah, so we've obviously talked for a while now about the idea of a full-time director position. I don't know if this is the best forum to be talking about the specifics of it, or if maybe Barbara and Vicky, you wanted to meet up with us individually to talk, that kind of thing. But I think that's something we should go forward with this year. I think that depending on how we wanted to do it, it's doable with the budget as we have it right now. But
How?
Nope,
Check
go
the
ahead.
word right out now.
How is it doing?
So looking at what we're paying people at the moment, if we wanted to take somebody in, working with us already, put them in, I think that the numbers wouldn't be much different than what we're looking at now, given the certifications and that kind of thing.
How would you cover? I'm assuming
Yeah.
there would be benefits with a full-time position. How would you cover that?
So we have the 22,000 that we have in the bank at the moment. So that can cover part of that for sure. There.
And we talked about the role of the director position being more improvements to it and efficiencies, recruitment for sure, training,
Just so
and.
you know, we had 5 new people in the last 2 weeks.
Awesome. Yes,
Well, it's kind of procedural. I mean, we met last week and we were told there was it wasn't on the agenda, that it wasn't gonna happen, and there was no discussion. And now all of a sudden we're back here this week and now it's up for discussion. I don't know what happened all of a sudden in a week.
what wasn't up for
Well,
discussion?
we said here at the last meeting, Sue said the full-time director's position is not up for.
It's not included.
It's not.
You said it wasn't directly in the budget.
Correct.
Right, and I
It's-
disagree with Robbie, I don't think we can absorb it in this.
Of course, I don't see it's not possible.
I'm just
No, I
looking
don't- I
at
don't
it,
agree.
yeah. I don't see how you're gonna,
In discussion on a full-time
Are you-
director's position.
are you gonna, the way I'm looking at it, you have to eliminate some of the payroll and give it, and bring it up to have that director.
Well, I guess the question would be what the payment would be and that kind of thing, as far as whether it would fit, obviously.
I know we discussed a certain amount, and I was just looking over and I'm saying, well, you have to eliminate
Right.
3 people at Lannyway to get even close to that, and I wasn't sure how you formulated that,
Right.
that's all, I was curious about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we've talked about though in the past, and just move, this is the direction I think that it needs to move in. It's not gonna happen overnight, but I think if we want to keep this a viable organization, there should be one person in charge of this important function.
Well, there is.
There's 3,
Rick is the executive director. It
Right.
all falls on him.
right,
Robbie and I can
but nobody
have
gets
input.
paid for a director position, even though you both make, you know,
No.
I think what's
$7,000
gonna happen
a
is
year.
honestly, we hit 700 calls this year. When we hit 900 calls, it's probably gonna be a full-time game.
Right, and you need somebody, and I think we're anticipating and moving towards that
Right.
direction, where we need somebody to manage the troops and manage the calls. We may have 3 trucks in 2 years or 3 years, because we may have the old truck still, whatever. I think
Right.
it's something that we have to look at, and we have to move in that direction. Can it be absorbed today? No. Can it be absorbed when Parts Location pays us $30,000 more? No. It's something that we need to move in the direction of and look at a full-time position with benefits and see how it can be built into this role. it's not an overnight discussion, it's not something we're gonna make a motion on today, Gene. It's something that I think is worthy of having on an agenda to see how it could be built into this organization.
Well, I totally agree, but I also agree with Jean that it is not in this payroll budget,
Correct.
nor can it be absorbed in
No,
this payroll
that's
without
correct.
cutting a lot of other people. I mean, you're talking $500 or $600 a month alone for insurance.
Well, if we said that
And-
Rick was gonna be the director and we would pay him his salary, who's gonna cover all the shifts that he does? And that's not, you'd be paying another 40 or 50,000. You're right, it's not in this budget, it's not absorbable by this budget, but it needs to be on the table for discussion.
Mhm.
We
moving
agree.
forward.
I agree with that. Mhm.
Okay.
It needs to be a
But
board
again,
discussion.
we should be talking about this starting a couple months
Right.
from now, after this term in March is
Well,
done. Let's,
I could make a motion, I just make a motion, we table this item.
Absolutely, and I'll second that, and
well, let's start talking about it early next year so that we can project what it's looking like. And essentially, you asked us to put together something that looked kind of real.
Yes.
We tried to do that.
Yep.
We knew that we eliminated the,
but I think also the pay structure is gonna make a difference in how that gets absorbed as well, and if that works. Vicki?
May we just agree that it's going to be on every agenda moving forward, so that's all we're always talking about?
Yes.
Do you envision the director making calls?
well,
All
if
right,
you didn't
so-
know, we'd be out of business, but.
All right, well,
I don't think it's impossible.
it was just
Yes,
suggested
it-
that we're gonna lose,
No,
whoever-
I'm just saying.
No, they
No.
have to,
Example.
no,
But
they'll have to be a working director.
The downside
Just
of
make-
paying somebody hourly is when you hit 40 hours or 48 or whatever they tap out, they tap out.
Mhm.
I mean, I've got that many already since Monday.
Yeah.
I think you can do it with a salaried position,
Yeah,
and you're not required to have a maximum amount of hours.
Right.
I'm not saying that we would ever want anybody to work the amount of hours that these two have been doing for the last year.
But it's only
Because
up
it's
to,
crazy.
it's a few hours, you know.
I agree.
I don't want to
I
be
know.
say,
Yeah.
that we have a motion and it's
Oh, yeah.
seconded,
Yeah.
and it's a non-debatable motion.
okay.
Right.
Sorry.
All in favor to move forward? Aye.
Okay.
Chain of command on medical 911 calls.
That's a good word.
So, the Bartlett Fire Chief has brought to our attention that it is his belief that basically he is in charge for any 911 call, no matter what, in the town of Bartlett or its
So
location.
we'd like to correct that situation.
We hope so.
Well, I say that, I think we all agree with that.
Yeah.
We
But
are
we're not 100% sure, because a few years ago, what happened, somewhere along the way, nothing to do that we knew about, all of a sudden now Carroll County dispatches, for anything that goes on, they dispatch the fire department,
Right.
whether it's an accident or whatever it is.
Right.
So we need to, I guess, ascertain why they have taken upon themselves to do that and why.
Power.
Pardon?
Power.
Well, I guess, but there's nothing town of Bartlett or anyone
Right.
requested, I don't think.
I'm not sure. I don't believe they took it upon themselves.
Well, I don't know either, but somehow it happened.
Well, we tried to figure it out. Rick had numerous calls into the sheriff,
All right.
and he never replied. So maybe you got a little more pull.
Robbie's
Maybe-
done the same thing.
Gene, would you be willing to make that call?
Oh, sure, I mean,
Okay.
I'm anxious, that's what we're doing now.
Well,
Yeah,
if we
no,
didn't
it's
spend so much
it's been a
time talking
concern
about
of ours when we hear, which, there's always gonna be some overlap a little bit on, you're never
Right.
too sure. But some of these strictly ambulance calls,
Right.
there's no sense.
Right.
We don't need to pull the fire.
And we have, and, you know, we're not, we have a fire department and we have an ambulance. And they are two separate issues and they should remain two separate issues, and we're in concurrence with that.
Absolutely.
And is
100%.
this, I'm just throwing this out there in case we need to, is this happening in Jackson at all?
Jackson's great.
Okay, so that's all I
The
needed
the
to
guy
know.
out
So
there
you
shows
guys
up when
can,
we need him.
so you guys
Was the
can,
morning his dad came and plowed Glen Ledge Road the other day.
But you
We
guys,
can't
the
play too well.
difference between
What?
Jackson has, your police department are trained
right.
EMTs.
Mhm.
So is ours.
What, yes, I
Okay,
know,
okay,
I saw that, but what we understand is that the fire chief in Bartlett wants to have a treat no transport.
Mhm.
So that will mean all of his fire department people
Right.
will be able to go to these emergencies, but
Oh, you
not,
want that?
No.
Okay, I know. Okay, I get it. But, let's just make sure that it's noted in the meeting minutes that Gene is gonna take care of
We know what.
finding out what's going on with the dissemination of calls in Bartlett and find out and correct it, okay?
We know,
Yep.
believe me.
Well, I'll say that I hope that the departments, yes, they're separate and distinct. I think the key is that they're aligned. And I guess that's my key question, you know, is Bartlett Fire and Rescue aligned with Bartlett Jackson
No.
Ambulance Service on
No.
these things? And if not, is that a discussion that this committee needs to have?
Good luck.
Yeah.
I think it's more.
That's my biggest concern.
I can make it understandable and fairly easy. We've got a couple firefighters in Jackson that are both EMTs and firefighters. We understand that if there's a fire, Deidre and Kevin are probably gonna be on the fire. We get that, that's just the way it works. We've got a couple in Bartlett that can do the same, but they typically haven't been able to because they're either A, getting older, don't wanna do the ambulance stuff anymore. But we have always been open as an ambulance service that holds a license to provide emergency medicine in the towns of Bartlett and Jackson to any firefighter that becomes an EMT that wants to join our service. They've always been able to do that. We offered that to Chris Burley, but he wanted to be a treat, not transport. That hurt us a little bit. It continues to frustrate us a little bit with some of the stuff in the newspaper, but that's a police thing versus a, so it's okay. But we have always been able and willing to accept and train anybody on either fire department, police department, or whatever, and we'll continue to do so. So that door is already open.
That's open, but unfortunately, the relationship is been an ongoing struggle. Unfortunately, it's really sad because it doesn't need to be that way. And I just envision that if they become a treat no transport,
It's not,
It's not
It's
gonna
not
happen.
gonna happen.
all right, then I'll shut my mouth.
It's a non-subject.
I'm just saying it would be.
So we'll have either an update at the next meeting, I'm sorry to interrupt, we'll have an update at the next meeting. I know it must be frustrating, but we'll have an update
No,
from either at the
No,
next
I mean,
meeting or we
yeah,
can close it off.
Well, for me, I think as Bartlett Select Board, you guys are more in the know about this functioning
Unfortunately.
than we are, which maybe is a good news, but
That's the bad.
we're partners on the ambulance, and so I would appreciate, you know, having the same level of information that you guys do on what in the way of low function or dysfunction is going on, so that, because it translates into life safety. I don't need to get more dramatic
Oh, a
than that.
cohesive working relationship.
So I have a question. So our fire chief is an EMT, is that correct?
He's an EMT who's licensed to our service.
Okay, and has there ever been a time where no one is available on the ambulance side and he takes the call?
He did once,
Once?
and he didn't want to drive to the hospital
Okay.
because there was something that burst into flames.
So the possibility exists to work together, but it's just not happening right now.
And
We
He can,
definitely.
but he won't. I mean,
But-
Pat
okay.
Roberts actually did a bunch of calls
Yeah.
on us. He actually took shifts. And, you know, again, if I know that Kevin or Jay's crew or Deidre has a real structure fire, or even not a real one, if it's a smoke alarm or carbon monoxide thing, we're gonna back them up. That's what Robbie and I do. That's what Caitlin in the back room does. You wanna meet Caitlin? That's Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin.
Thank you,
I was
Caitlin.
wondering this.
Yeah, we went, I mean,
Okay.
part of our job description for the fire chief was they had to be an EMT, because we said, look, there's someone sitting at the fire station, if we get a call, who can be the first person to respond?
Sure.
Exactly, right, exactly. And I personally have been on calls where he sat right in the station
Right.
and would.
But I think, again, the communication has to be, the line of communication and the dissemination of the calls is what has to be defined here, and the fact that he doesn't make that decision, so you'll work on that.
The collaborative effort has to benefit everyone.
Right, and like you said, life
We're
safety
willing to do
first,
that.
it's nothing ambulance.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we could appoint, we'd appoint you would be in charge, how's that?
Who, me?
Oh,
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely, I love that.
Yeah, we.
No, bring it on. Bob loves
Okay.
more meetings.
And public hearing.
Absolutely.
Love those.
All right, upcoming meetings. I'm thinking, I don't remember what months we did last year, but I liked having them on the calendar. I'm thinking if we could do April, July, October, and December. It kind of spreads one out until the end of, after town meeting. So that would be our first meeting after this. And then we would have one in July, October, and then December would be our first budget meeting for next year.
And if I could say that it would be good to have a more in-depth report on that tabled agenda item at our April meeting, full-time director position. And it gives us all some time to kind of absorb it, digest it, work on some figures, and have a more in-depth discussion.
Agreed. Our select meetings are on the second Tuesday, so we would look at April 9th. Because we did the first two in Jackson, the second two in Bartlett, and if that works out again, we can do that. So April 9th at 4:30,
Here,
yes. And then we would look at July 9th at 4:30. And then we did, October and December, we did to be determined, and Vicki, maybe you and I can get together and look at what your dates are for select meetings for those 2
Yes,
months.
and it should be Wednesdays.
Yep, and then we'll put those on the calendar, and we will put that out through email next week, so we can get those marked on our calendars. Does that sound good? Yeah, April and July 9th, and then,
Is Jackson here also?
correct,
Yeah.
and then the second two will be at Bartlett.
Yep.
And 4:30 would be the time.
Yeah.
That works,
I said December would be the budget.
yes.
Now,
So
I know we-
December, probably like mid to late, like mid-December, and, like third week is the 18th, that's the farthest we'd probably want to go.
I know we need 4 meetings for the committee. Does the budget meeting satisfy one of those meetings?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have our budget included in that
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, but it'd be nice, I think, to share throughout each meeting what the thoughts are, what we're thinking, maybe what new gear is available.
Absolutely.
And we could have a standard agenda item for each of the things that we always want to talk about, and then add as needed what we have to have, and I appreciate you setting up the agendas for approval.
As long as it doesn't turn into a complaint session each thing, I'm happy.
Well, stop it.
But
Just kidding.
I'm just trying to give you solutions.
All right, anything else? Oh, Gene?
I think we need to elect officers. This is the annual meeting, I
Oh my
think.
gosh, you're
I
right.
don't know if it was advertised as the annual meeting, but it was posted meeting, so
It probably should be, since the next one is in April.
so does anyone?
Are you volunteering to be?
No, no.
Oh.
But, do you want to stay?
I'll stay as chair, unless
stay
you
vice
two want.
chair?
Unless,
I don't care, I'm just trying to.
My thing is, when I start, we open, I have very limited time.
then I'm happy.
Vicki
to
and I will
stay.
stay as liaisons.
Do we need to make
And I'll-
motions and
Do you
vote?
want to chair, or do you want me to
I
chair?
would like you to.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Does anyone want to appoint me?
I'll make a motion, we reappoint Barb as the committee chair.
I'll
And
second
Vicki is
that.
vice chair, or do both in one motion?
And then Vicki?
Oh, and Vicki as vice chair, yeah, let me
Then I can't second it.
restate the motion. I'll make a motion that we go through next year with Barb as chair and Vicki as vice chair.
Well, I'll be glad to second that.
If we get Hearts on board, should we put somebody in there as a representative too?
Let's finish the
No, well,
motion
that's
first
easy.
for the chair and the vice chair. All in favor? Aye, thank you. I would love to have a liaison at the table. That doesn't
Yeah, I
need to
mean, that's
necessarily have a position, but I would love to have a liaison at the table.
Well, at least
for
they
that.
know what's going on, so there's
Absolutely.
no big surprises.
So when I call Mark, I will mention to him the dates of the meetings
Okay.
that we're gonna be looking, we appreciate is 2,000, we're gonna be looking for at least 4,000 plus equipment next year. Get to
Well,
know
I
him a
think
little better
the
before
way
I.
to do that is to explain what we're doing with expenditures,
Yeah,
right?
no, I'm not
If we fire gear
gonna
and
say it
ambulances,
that
we
way.
spent millions of dollars this year.
Gene.
We
Literally
need
millions.
to elect a secretary treasurer
Really?
who isn't a member of the committee, so that would be Sue.
Okay. I nominate, I'm the treasurer.
Or somebody, I don't care who, but.
No, do you still
She
want to
has to
remain
be
the treasurer?
really-
And the only reason I ask is Caitlin's doing a lot of, she's like,
She is, yeah.
do you want to remain as treasurer and secretary? or treasurer?
I don't wanna be secretary, but I'll be treasurer, but, I mean, obviously,
Have the secretary of duties been a real burden?
no.
Okay.
So I do the minutes?
It's
Well,
one
Bob
of-
does the minutes
Okay,
usually,
yeah,
so we're
It's
good
one
with that.
position.
I mean, not that I don't want Caitlin to do it, she certainly is welcome, she, do you wanna be treasurer, where are you?
I'm right here, but I believe that that is probably a larger commitment that I can do while taking courses in Massachusetts.
Well, that's what I thought, but I
It's
didn't.
a really good excuse. I've heard them all,
I'll
and that's it.
nominate,
Yeah.
Sue to be secretary treasurer.
I will say. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Sue. All right.
Okay, so it's just that, so I'm absolutely 100% sure. The budget that we adopted,
Barbara's gonna send that out updated.
you're gonna
Yes.
send it, and you're gonna put it in the book, and you're gonna give it to Bartlett for the book.
Okay, yeah, I'll send it in the right format
Right,
if
because
Mary
it's
needs it.
gotta be different than what they have now.
Correct.
Okay,
And I'll do that tomorrow because that's important.
Okay.
Everybody gets it on time.
right, very good.
Hank, I look forward to getting your recording of this so I can do the minutes.
Okay, no problem.
I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at
Second.
5:34. Are you waiting for that, Bob? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming, for being patient, for all
So
the
now that-
wonderful
now that the
dialogue.
meeting's adjourned, did you ever check into our availability for